From the Denver Broncos Media Center, welcome to Broncos Country Tonight.
Welcome to Broncos Country Tonight. The Broncos making a ton of moves last week in NFL free agency. Still moves possibly to come. But based on what they've done so far, Benjamin, I thought it'd be great to take stock on the offensive side of the ball for a second and see how this 32nd ranked offense was able to improve over the course of free agency. Now, I think we can acknowledge that the Broncos don't have a lot of draft picks, so they were going to have to be very busy in free agency to fill some of these holes. But big picture on what they did on the offensive side of the ball, how did they do sort of catching up to the rest of the league?
Well, I think that they started where they needed to start, and that is the offensive line. Adding right tackle Mike McGlinchey, getting left guard Ben Powers. These guys, it kind of beyond just being offensive line bodies, are guys with a certain attitude that they've been trying to import here for a while. And I think pairing those two up with Quinn Meinerz, I think that really the three of those guys kind of have that same attitude. And it's that we're going to, we're just going to block a guy. We're going to block you into oblivion. We're going to murder. And so, I think that's good. I think that having a guard like Powers who can pull as well as he does, I think it sets up what it is they're trying to do. You added a Chris Manners and a Mike Burton, and you've continued to add blocking pieces. You add a Samaje Perine, who's a load to bring down, an excellent pass blocker, and catches well out of the backfield. And I think the Broncos want to play bully ball. I think they want to play a strong, powerful, punch-you-in-the-mouth, run-first offense, and then use Russell Wilson to go over the top, when they can. And it certainly looks like they've set up for that. It certainly looks like that's going to be the offensive identity, and I think that's good. I think that there's really, one, two other teams in the league that play that kind of game. I mean, the Ravens have played that the last few years. Right. Who knows what they're going to do now? And then the Titans. And everybody dreads playing those two teams, even when they're bad, because you're going to wake up the next as the defense. You're going to wake up the next week and be sore and going to work, right?
But you talked about it. Two of the best running offenses, talk about the Ravens and the 49ers in that group. You just added offensive linemen from those teams, and plus those are both playoff teams too. And I think that needs to be sort of the underlying current of this whole thing, right? Samaje Perine, the Cincinnati Bengals, the Jacksonville Jaguars with Chris Manners, right? Burton with the Kansas City Chiefs. So that for me is a little bit of an undercurrent of this whole thing. On the offensive side of the ball, not only did you add some starting caliber players, but you also added guys that have experience being around winning cultures. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned it there, playing bully ball. They've got experience being efficient in the run game, which is something the Broncos have been really desperate to do for many years.
Yeah, they have kind of struggled. I think they've finally, hopefully, shored up that right tackle position. I mean, they thought they had it with Juwan James, but this feels like a little bit better, a little bit safer, signing. I mean, just looking at what this team is set up for going forward, I sort of like that an offensive identity that has an edge, to it. I think it's been mostly kind of a finesse team since Peyton Manning, and that's fine with Peyton Manning and a guy who can get that done. But if you don't have Peyton Manning back there, we saw what's happened over the last, 5, 6, 7 years. So I like the fact that they've kind of given this thing a different offensive identity. I look forward to seeing what that product is going to be. I'm a big fan of Samaje Perine. I've always been a fan. They did import winners, guys from winning football teams.
Right.
Say the Ravens, the 49ers, even the Jaguars last year. The Chiefs won the Super Bowl. So they did import guys that are winners. And I think bringing that culture, what it takes to get there, I think that's a hidden kind of bonus of that. I just think it's going to be interesting because I think everybody thought Sean Payton was in here to throw the ball over the yard, and it looks like the Broncos are going to be the groundcos.
Yeah, well, somebody last year said that this was a good idea. I can't imagine who on this show said that they should really invest in the run game, but I digress. They are finally going to invest in the run game. I'm going to play that card forever. Yeah, you just have to know that. You got all
was it you that said that?
You got all of Twitter coming after me for that nonsense. I got texts and tweets from family members like, you really? Russell Wilson's coming to town and you want to run the ball?
Yeah.
Anyways, I digress. Before we go too far, though, they also signed a quarterback on day one of free agency. And I don't want that to go under the radar too much because we've seen a lot of these contracts come through for backup quarterbacks. And this is one that stands out. And I was listening to our friend Randy Mueller talk about it on his podcast, as well as Peter King calling it the most fascinating signing of free agency for him. So there's a belief around the league maybe that Jarrett Stidham maybe could be something at some point.
He showed some flashes. I mean, he played a couple of good games, last year. He certainly has familiarity with the Parcells, coaching thing under New England, and then Josh McDaniels in Vegas. I always thought that he was a good quarterback prospect if you had the time to put into making him a good quarterback. I think there's enough money invested there that it's a real backup quarterback. I don't know that anybody expects him to become a starter, but if he does, so be it. But I do think that there's an investment there in the capability of winning football games if Russell Wilson can't get the job done, that, hey, we've got an actual person that we're grooming for the future. We all love Brett Rippon, but that nobody was ever grooming him for the future unless that future was in coaching. With Jarrett Stidham, if Russ can't get it done and you got to bench him, you're putting Stidham in there and you're seeing if he's the guy for the future or not.
When we talked about the philosophical approach to the backup quarterback, some people will go with a little bit more of a higher floor, somebody like an Andy Dalton, for example, right? Somebody that has the experience, they can come in, you know what you're going to get out of them. Jacoby Brissett's kind of in that category now. I think he's a little bit higher ceiling, but we can debate that another day. But Jarrett Stidham, the way that it was sort of framed with Peter King is like, hey, this guy represents a little bit more of the upside swing, a little bit more of an unknown, what he really has tapped into his full potential. And the way he views it, the way Peter King kind of framed it, I liked, is he said, hey, if for some reason things don't go the way that the Broncos expected there, injury or otherwise, he thinks Jarrett Stidham actually could come in and provide a spark to this team maybe now and into the future.
Well, that's certainly a thought that's a possibility. So, I mean, and they respect his game enough from the tape to bring him in and offer him that money. I like I said, I don't know that he's the future, but I know that he represents enough of that if Russ falters, that they'll switch to that and they'll punt on Russ after this year. So, I think they want to look at what he has to offer, see if maybe there is something there, and if it doesn't work out, it's not enough. It's enough money that he backs up 2 years and you move on. But again, it represents that, like you said, the unknown. It represents, hey, there might be something here versus Brett, who, again, we all liked, but we all knew that that wasn't going anywhere for the future.
So back to a lot of the signings that are going to play right away, right? Mike McGlinchey, Ben Powers, Chris Manhertz, Michael Burton, as well as Samaje Perine, of course, because the running back position, we don't really know if they're going to draft anybody or otherwise. So based on where we're at right now, those additions, what else do we still need on the offensive side of the ball?
Well, you need a burner wide receiver. You need reliable, deep speed. And I'm talking about 4.3 speed. Everybody's like, well, Jerry Jeudy's not slow. Well, Jerry Jeudy's not slow, but Jerry Jeudy's really an intermediate route runner. Like, that's what he is. He has a little bit of long speed, too, but he's that guy. You need reliable, deep, take the top off speed on the backside to make the Sean Payton offense work. It does. They'll hold the safety on the backside. That's how it works.
Can KJ Hamler be that guy?
Well, I mean, if KJ could stay healthy, but I don't think that you can roll the dice on that. I don't think you can bet a season on KJ Hamler staying healthy, given his history. Jalen Virgil might very well be that guy,
right?
But I don't think you could bet on a guy who has 2 receptions in his career and could barely see the field, and is last year as an undrafted guy.
An acknowledgement, very quickly. It's an acknowledgement of the last coaching staff and how they viewed some of these players, right? Alberto Cuebanam is another guy that fell out of favor with the last coaching staff. New eyes maybe see a different player.
Possibly. So I think that's what they need to do. They need to find that wherever that is. I know they flirted with the Brandon Cooks thing for a minute, but in the end, he wound up in Dallas. I don't think that there's somebody on the free agent market right now that really fits that bill. Like I started looking around. I didn't see anybody. There are a couple guys in the draft. I wouldn't mind them taking a shot at a Trey Palmer if he happens to get in their in their range. I don't think the kid from Arkansas is going to be available, but there's a couple other guys that there's 3 or 4 guys that ran sub 4.40s that might be in that range where the Broncos pick that they could maybe look at.
Speaking of Razorbacks, congratulations. Big win over the weekend.
Yeah, it felt good to, just to be out there and get a win. A lot of heart, a lot of effort. Eric Musselman went full Petey Pablo, taking his shirt off and spinning it like a helicopter.
I was like, did Arkansas just win the national championship?
I've never been more proud.
Yeah, I'm sure you did. I'm sure you did. All right, on the next episode, we'll talk about the defensive side of the ball and how the Broncos upgraded that. For Benjamin Albright, I'm Ryan Edwards. Thanks for watching Broncos Country tonight.
You can stand up and salute in Denver, and you got the world champions that live in your town.